The food ruining your leg circulation after 60 has nothing to do with salt. It's not red meat either, and it's definitely not just about getting older. It's sitting in almost every kitchen cabinet in America right now, and most people pour it into their pan every single day without a second thought. Here's what I want to show you today. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which food it is. You're going to understand precisely how it damages the blood vessels running down into your legs, and I'm going to give you a simple protocol to start reversing that damage starting today. So stick with me, because this is one of those topics where the information genuinely surprised me the first time I came across it. And once you see it, you're not going to look at your pantry the same way again. Most people believe poor leg circulation after 60 comes down to salt, red meat, or simply getting older. Here's why that explanation falls short. Salt can raise blood pressure temporarily. Aging does play a role in slowing circulation, but that leaves a big gap. Plenty of people in their 60s keep their salt intake low and their blood pressure controlled for years, and their legs still stiffen up. Something else is driving this. Here's a number worth sitting with. At the start of the 20th century, linoleic acid made up about 2% of the average person's daily calories. Today, that figure sits above 8%. That's a fourfold jump in under 100 years. And the timeline lines up closely with the rise in peripheral artery disease we're now seeing in older adults. Most of that increase traces back to vegetable oil. Soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, sunflower oil. These show up in salad dressings, in restaurant fryers, in packaged snacks marketed with a heart-healthy label right on the front. That's the piece worth paying attention to. The oil sitting in your pantry with a heart-healthy label on it may be doing more damage to your arteries than the occasional steak ever did. Out of all the foods on planet Earth, there's one that's quietly doing more damage to leg circulation after 60 than almost anything else on your plate. And it's probably sitting in your pantry right now, in a bottle you use nearly every day. It's refined vegetable oil, soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, the ones labeled heart healthy, the ones in almost every salad dressing, every restaurant fryer, every packaged snack on the shelf. This isn't about a single meal or a single bottle of oil. It's about what happens after years of that oil building up inside your arteries, drop by drop, meal by meal. And the mechanism behind it is something almost nobody explains clearly. So let's break it down, because the way this actually plays out inside your blood vessels is pretty wild. Let's talk about what happens once that vegetable oil ends up in your bloodstream. Vegetable oils like soybean, canola, and corn oil are loaded with linoleic acid, a type of polyunsaturated fat. Linoleic acid has a very specific molecular structure with multiple weak points along its chain. Now, what does that mean in practical terms? Think of linoleic acid like a stick of butter left out on a hot counter for weeks. It doesn't hold up well. It breaks down. That breakdown process is called oxidation, and it happens both while the oil sits on a store shelf for months and while it gets heated in a frying pan at your local restaurant. Some of that oxidized oil gets absorbed into your bloodstream and incorporated directly into your LDL particles, the ones responsible for carrying cholesterol through your arteries. Once linoleic acid becomes part of that LDL particle and then oxidizes further inside your blood vessels, you end up with what's called oxidized LDL. Now, what does oxidized LDL actually mean? Picture a delivery truck that's supposed to drop cargo at a specific address and move along. A normal LDL particle does exactly that. An oxidized LDL particle is that same truck after a wreck. Your immune system doesn't recognize it anymore. It reads it as damaged material, as debris, as something requiring immediate attention. That immune response is where the real trouble for your leg circulation begins. But oxidized LDL doesn't just float around causing random problems. It goes and attacks something very specific, something lining every single blood vessel running through your legs. We left off with oxidized LDL circulating through your bloodstream, tagged by your immune system as damaged material. Here's where it goes next, and this connects directly back to your legs. Every blood vessel in your body is lined with a single layer of cells called the endothelium. Think of it like the smooth inner lining of a garden hose. When that lining is smooth, blood flows through easily, without resistance. Oxidized LDL particles get lodged into that lining, and your immune system sends white blood cells in to deal with them. That response causes inflammation right there in the vessel wall. Over time, the smooth garden hose lining turns rough, thickened, and less flexible. Here's what's fascinating. A healthy endothelium produces a gas called nitric oxide. Now, what exactly is nitric oxide? It's the signal that tells the muscle around your blood vessels to relax and widen, the same way loosening a tight fist lets more blood through your hand. Without enough nitric oxide, vessels stay slightly contracted. All day, every day. And here's the part that matters specifically for your legs. The vessels furthest from your heart, the ones running down through your calves and feet, are the first to feel the effects of that reduced nitric oxide and that stiffened lining. Less blood reaches the muscle tissue down there. That's the mechanism behind the heaviness, the cramping, the pain that shows up when you walk a certain distance and have to stop. Did you realize this is one of the most overlooked causes of leg pain in people over 60? And almost nobody connects it back to the oil sitting in their pantry. Now, before we get into the evidence, I want you to do a quick check right here, right now, because this connects directly to what we just covered. Number 1, calf pain that shows up specifically when you walk and then eases off once you sit down and rest. That pattern has a name, intermittent claudication, and it's one of the clearest signs of reduced blood flow to the leg muscles. Number 2, feet that stay cold even when the room is warm, even when you're wearing socks. That's often a sign that blood simply isn't reaching the smaller vessels down there the way it should. Number 3, changes in the skin on your lower legs, paler than usual, a slight blue or shiny tint, skin that looks tighter or thinner than it used to. Number 4, and this one surprises people, hair that stopped growing on your shins or the top of your feet, and toenails that seem to grow noticeably slower than your fingernails. Both of those tissues depend on steady circulation, and they're often among the first places to show it when that circulation slows down. Number 5, any small cut or blister on your foot or ankle that's taking far longer than usual to heal. If 2 or 3 of those sound familiar, you're not imagining it. And everything I'm about to show you next matters even more. Let's look at the actual numbers, because they tell this story better than I can. Researchers estimate that a typical ancestral diet had an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio somewhere close to 4-to-1. Sometimes even lower. Today, with vegetable oil in nearly everything on the shelf, that ratio in a standard diet sits closer to 16-to-1, sometimes higher. That shift didn't happen because of red meat or butter. It happened because vegetable oil became the default cooking fat in restaurants, packaged foods, and home kitchens, all at once, starting in the mid-20th century. Here's something worth knowing. There was a study conducted in the 1960s and 70s called the Sydney Diet Heart Study, where one group of men replaced saturated fat with vegetable oil high in linoleic acid. Their cholesterol numbers on paper looked better. But when researchers went back decades later and reanalyzed the outcomes, the group eating more vegetable oil had a meaningfully higher rate of death from heart disease, not a lower one. That data sat in a filing cabinet for almost 50 years before anyone re-examined it. Of course, nobody talks about it. Now think about restaurant fryers specifically. Many restaurants reuse the same vegetable oil for days, sometimes reheating it dozens of times before it's replaced. Each round of heating increases oxidation. That means the fries or the fried chicken from your favorite restaurant likely contains oil that's been oxidizing for far longer than anything you'd cook with at home. Compare that to olive oil or animal fats, which are far more stable under heat and don't oxidize at nearly the same rate. Same frying pan, completely different outcome for your arteries. Now, even people who are genuinely trying to eat well fall into a few traps here, and I want to walk through them, because I've made some of these mistakes myself. Mistake number 1. Buying a salad dressing labeled healthy or light and assuming it's automatically better for you. Check the ingredient list on most of those bottles, and soybean oil or canola oil sits right near the top. You're eating a healthy salad and pouring the exact oil we've been talking about all over it. Mistake number 2, reusing frying oil at home. A lot of people fry something once, let the oil cool, strain it, and use it again a few days later to save money. Every round of reheating increases oxidation. That oil sitting in a jar next to your stove is getting more damaged with every use, not less. Mistake number 3, and this one surprises people. Switching from butter to margarine because it sounds like the heart-healthy choice. Margarine is made primarily from vegetable oil, often processed even further than the oil itself. It's marketed as the safer option, and for a lot of people, it's actually the bigger source of the problem. Here's my honest confession on this one. I spent years buying the spray conversion of vegetable oil for my own cooking because it felt lighter, felt cleaner. Good thing my wife finally pointed out what was actually in it. So if you've made any of these 3 mistakes, you're in very good company. Let's fix it. Let's make this simple and actionable. Here's exactly what to do. Step 1, remove the obvious sources first. Soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, and anything labeled simply vegetable oil. Check your pantry right now. If one of these is your everyday cooking oil, that's the first thing to swap out. Step 2, replace it with something more stable. Extra virgin olive oil for lower heat cooking and salad dressings. Avocado oil or coconut oil for higher heat cooking like sautéing or roasting. Butter or ghee in moderate amounts work well too. These fats hold up under heat instead of oxidizing the way vegetable oil does. Step 3, read labels before you buy, especially on salad dressings, mayonnaise, and anything marketed as light or healthy. If soybean oil or canola oil shows up in the first 3 ingredients, put it back on the shelf. Step 4, when you eat out, know that most restaurants fry with vegetable oil, often reused for days. That doesn't mean never eat out again. It means make it the exception, not the daily habit, and lean on home cooked meals with the oils we just talked about for the majority of your week. Give this a real try for 30 days. Swap the oil, read the labels, and pay attention to how your legs feel after a walk. And if you want to push those results even further, there are a few foods that can speed the process along. Swapping the oil is the foundation. But here's how to accelerate what's happening inside those blood vessels, because a few foods work on that same nitric oxide pathway we just talked about from a different angle. First, beets. Beets are loaded with dietary nitrates, which your body converts step by step into nitric oxide through a completely separate pathway. Think of it as a second supply route feeding the same system. A glass of beet juice or a serving of roasted beets a few times a week gives that pathway extra raw material to work with. Second, aged garlic. Garlic produces a compound called allicin, and research on aged garlic extract specifically has shown it supports the same vessel relaxation response we've been talking about. Now, what does that actually mean for you? It means your blood vessels respond more easily when they need to widen, exactly the response that gets blunted by oxidized LDL. Third, dark chocolate, the real kind, 70% cacao or higher. The flavonols in cacao directly stimulate the enzyme responsible for producing nitric oxide in the endothelium, not milk chocolate loaded with sugar, the real thing, in small amounts. Fourth, real vitamin E from foods like sunflower seeds, almonds, and avocado, not the synthetic version in a lot of cheap supplements. Vitamin E protects LDL particles from oxidizing in the first place, which loops all the way back to the oxidation process we covered earlier. Combine the oil swap with even one or two of these, and you're stacking multiple pathways at once instead of relying on just one. So what does that actually look like on a timeline? Let's walk through it. Let's talk about what actually happens inside your body, stage by stage, once you make this change. Within the first 48 hours, the amount of fresh oxidized fat entering your bloodstream drops sharply. That doesn't undo years of buildup overnight, but it does stop adding new damage to the pile, which is the first real step. By around 2 weeks in, research looking at endothelial function after dietary fat changes generally shows the first measurable signs of improvement, meaning that garden hose lining we talked about starts responding a little more easily when it needs to widen. Somewhere around the 6 to 8 week mark is typically when studies on vascular function start showing more consistent improvement in blood flow, not just at the cellular level, but in measurable flow tests. And by 90 days, this is usually where people report the real felt difference. Walking a little further before the calf tightens up. Feet that don't feel as cold by the end of the day. Stairs that don't demand a pause halfway up like they used to. None of this is instant, and it shouldn't be. Your arteries didn't get here overnight, and they're not going to reverse course overnight either. But the direction of change starts almost immediately. Now, before you run to your kitchen and toss every bottle of oil in the house, there are a few things worth knowing first. A few honest notes before you dive in. If you're on blood thinning medication, talk to your doctor before adding garlic extract or high-dose vitamin E, since both can amplify that effect. This isn't a reason to avoid them. It's a reason to loop your doctor in first. If you've already been diagnosed with peripheral artery disease or any other vascular condition, this protocol works alongside your current treatment, not instead of it. Keep taking what's been prescribed, and bring this information to your next appointment as something to add, not something to swap in. And if you're the type of person who likes to overhaul everything at once, new oil, new supplements, new exercise routine, all in the same week, I gently suggest slowing down. Change the oil first. Give it a few weeks. Then layer in one addition at a time. That way, if something genuinely helps, you'll actually know which change did it. None of that means don't do this. It means do it the smart way, one step at a time, with your doctor aware of what you're doing. So here's where that leaves you. The oil swap, the foods that speed it along, the timeline of what to expect, and your doctor kept in the loop along the way. That's the whole plan, and none of it requires anything complicated. Give it 30 days first, then keep going from there. Pay attention to how your legs feel after a walk around the block, after a flight of stairs, after standing in line at the grocery store. Come back and tell me what changed. If this video helped connect a dot you hadn't connected before, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this information reach someone else's mom or dad who's dealing with the exact same thing and has no idea why. And if you're someone who wants to understand what's actually happening inside your arteries before this stage, there's a video I made that walks through exactly how plaque builds up in the first place, step by step. That one connects directly to everything we covered today. I am Andrew Collins, and I will see you in the next video.